I am back with Luca Giliberti, and we are joined today by Kevin Jacobsen to talk about the 72nd Primetime Emmy Awards. Today we're going to be talking about the categories of Drama Guest Actor and Drama Guest Actress. So, three of us all have Andrew Scott, Jason Bateman, Charles Dance, and Ron Cephas Jones, I believe, who are also the top four in the odds. Kevin, what do you think about the drama guest actor category overall?
I don't know if I have Jason Bateman. Maybe I did at one point, but regardless.
Okay, well, why don't you have him then?
Just because I don't know how well The Outsider is going to do, generally speaking. I don't know if people have watched it. I know Jason Bateman certainly has become a Emmy darling, based on his directing win last year and his continued nominations. I think he will continue that with Ozark. I don't know if that will extend also to The Outsider, but I suppose he has the best shot there. But generally speaking of this category, I think it's sort of a mess. I think there are a lot of people who could get in. I mean, I would argue that the only real lock, quote unquote, is Ron Cephas Jones for This Is Us, I guess. And even then, I'm not sure because he continues to have less and less to do with each season of This Is Us. So, yeah, who knows? That could be just another shocking snub of the morning. But, I mean, we have a lot of just veteran actors like we tend to have in these kinds of categories. People like Charles Dance, I think, have a great shot for The Crown, and James Cromwell for Succession, and Gerald McCraney, who is the winner of season 1 of This Is Us in this category. So he could very well just get another, maybe wouldn't say it's a name check, but certainly just a name they're familiar with and comfortable with just having in this category. So I think, long story short, this is just a category that could go to pretty much anyone, and I don't think there is a clear frontrunner, unless you guys disagree.
Well, it's interesting that you say that there's only one lock, because I actually feel like I'm very confident in 5 of my predictions.
Oh, wow. All right.
which I don't think is something that can be possible in the guest categories. So that's true. Okay, Luca, what do you think about this category?
Well, I think, again, a show that's being underestimated by our odds in general is The Handmaid's Tale. The Handmaid's Tale has dominated the guest categories in these last few years. It has a 3-year streak in guest actress. It's won that category 3 times in a row and netted a whole lot of nominations. Last year was the first time that it broke into guest actor because Bradley Whitford was eligible and he ended up winning. And this year we have a few people here. I have both Christopher Maloney and O.T. Fagbenle in my lineup. Christopher Maloney is someone who misses for a lot of projects at the Emmys. Last year he missed for Pose. But The Handmaid's Tale is an acting juggernaut at the Emmys. It's netted 14 acting nominations and 6 wins for 6 different people. So I think if he gets in for one show, then it has to be this one. And then we have O.T. Fagbenle, who plays Luke on the show, June's husband. He is usually a series regular who didn't appear in so many episodes this year, which is why he's eligible in guest. And he has 2 episodes this season where he's giving, I think, in my opinion, the best performance he's ever given on this show. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to be recognized for it. And then we also have Max Minghella in contention here, who is also a series regular. I don't have him in at the moment just because he was barely in the season, but he's another one who could just benefit from being a series regular in all other seasons. He could sort of get in like Samira Wiley did in for the second season after she was a regular in the first. So I think that show is once again being underestimated, but I do agree that there are a few people I feel quite confident in. I feel confident in Jason Bateman for The Outsider because that show was quite a big hit for HBO, and I feel like Jason Bateman is just beloved by his peers. I feel confident in Charles Dance for The Crown. I think he's probably the safest bet at the moment. And then Ron Cephas Jones and Gerald McCraney, they've been nominated for This Is Us several times. To me, they seem like safe bets as well. even though Gerald McCraney only appeared in the finale and has like one scene, but who knows? They've rewarded him for this role, so I think he might easily get in.
Yeah, I feel like Christopher Maloney is kind of like the Lisa Kudrow of this category. We talked about her in the comedy guest actress slugfest, where it just seems like he's in something every year, and he's always on the cusp of getting nominated, and he never gets in. So I feel like I'm not going to start predicting him now. I also think that The Handmaid's Tale, it is getting older, as I like to say in these slugfests, and his role is not, it doesn't have the most depth to it. So I wouldn't be surprised for even fans of the show to overlook him. I do have O.T. Fag Bentley. Is that how you say his name?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, he, like early in the season, it seemed like he was actually going to be in a position where he could pull off an upset, but his story was kind of forgotten later in the season. But I do feel pretty confident that he'll get in.
Yeah.
And then going back to Jason Bateman for The Outsider, I think that The Outsider is one that we need to watch out for just because it got so many viewers. It's HBO's second most watched show this season. And this is kind of like Ozark in that this is his baby and that he's the executive producer. He directed the first couple episodes. And then also, if you're watching the show, like if you only watch the first episode, for example, he's like almost a co-lead. The show actually takes a very different direction. I liken it to Unbelievable, where it starts with Caitlin Dever, but then, it shifts over to the detectives. So I feel like The Outsider is kind of like if you had just left Caitlin Dever in the premiere and you had not followed her throughout the season. That's kind of what we have with The Outsider. So he's very prominent at the start. It feels like he's a series regular, which always helps in these categories.
Interesting.
Moving over to Gerald McCraney, I've got him in 6th just because he seems to make the most logical sense. I can't come up with a better argument for anybody else. But I also feel like he won for the first season, and I feel like everybody is aware of that. And he came back for the second season. He got nominated. He wasn't in the third season. I'm worried that people might have moved on by now. Maybe kind of like how Beau Bridges was nominated for the first couple seasons of Masters of Sex, and then he wasn't nominated for the third because he wasn't eligible. And then when he came back for the fourth and final season, they just didn't care anymore.
Right. I realized I had mentioned, or I had said that he is like a safe bet for me, but then I realized I don't even have him in my predictions. That's simply because Andrew Scott is now eligible here for Black Mirror. I think he's someone who can definitely benefit from being eligible in the guest categories because he was not nominated for Fleabag last year. And I think he can sort of capitalize on that snub and turn that goodwill into a nomination this year. Black Mirror has at this point competed normally it would compete in limited series, but this year it's competing in the drama categories now. So that's the only hurdle I could see for him. But I think, and I've mentioned this in other slugfests, that the guest categories are there for people like him that have, been snubbed in the past and could just sneak in, even for a show that doesn't do well in the other categories. So that's why I bumped Gerald McCraney. And Riley, you do make a very good point that he wasn't in the third season, so he wasn't able to be nominated. So there is that gap in between. But if voters watch the fourth season and they watch that finale, he gives the type of monologue that he won for in the first season. So if they watched it, I wouldn't be surprised for them if voters checked it off.
Yeah, plus he sings.
Exactly.
The range.
Yeah, the range.
But yeah, I totally agree on Andrew Scott being kind of that classic example of an afterglow nomination. But ironically, not getting nominated last year probably helps him even more this time around. And this rarity of having Black Mirror people here is something I'm looking out for to see if anything changes now that they're in drama. Just because I feel like people are more willing to go for people who are in these one-episode one-offs than they would be with limited series, even though we obviously had Jesse Plemons and Letitia Wright getting those individual nominations. I just wonder, looking back on past Emmy years, whether people like Bryce Dallas Howard, for example, could have actually easily gotten in here instead of in a limited series category. So yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to see if they respond to the people from Black Mirror in that way. And Andrew Scott is very clearly going to be the person, if there's anyone. But
yeah, Black Mirror is only submitting Andrew Scott and Miley Cyrus as guests, and then everyone else they're putting in supporting.
yeah, which is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sort of just think they should all be eligible for just doing guest. I just feel like that's easier, but I don't know their strategy.
Someone I don't feel confident in is James Cromwell for Succession. It's the same conversation we had about Succession in the supporting and lead categories, which is that the show was blanked at the Emmys last year, including for James Cromwell in Guest Actor. Obviously, the show's second season blew up in terms of critical acclaim and audience acclaim, so I definitely see it possibly breaking into all of these acting categories, but I just don't know when it's competing against shows like The Handmaid's Tale, This Is Us, which are, acting favorites at the Emmys. I just don't know if it's strong enough in the acting categories to edge them out, but if it is, James Cromwell is definitely going to get nominated, especially if everyone else in his cast is. That's someone I don't have in, but I do think he's in like 7th or 8th place for me. But yeah.
Yeah, James Cromwell, it's the same discussion we've been having for a year with Succession.
It's true.
I didn't predict it for SAG Ensemble, and like that turned out to be right. But then, like at this point, it's really weird if they don't break into a whole bunch of acting categories and they're possibly going to win drama series. So yeah, at this point, I have it. I've got double nominations for Successions in some category, and then in other categories, I just don't have it at all. So this is one category where I don't have it. I'm concerned that James Cromwell is moving into that, Christopher Maloney territory where maybe he's just being taken for granted.
Right.
So that's kind of why I don't have him. I'm intrigued by This Is Us just because they have so many contenders in this category, beyond the 2 winning performances that we've mentioned already. They also have Asante Black, who was nominated last year for When They See Us. If he submits here, then they have Michael Angarano, who was nominated last year. They've got Blake Stadnick, who's singing in the premiere. I feel like fans of the show might really respond to that performance. Who else do they have?
I'm not sure. I believe you mentioned most of them. But the problem with This Is Us this reminds me of the race for guest actress for season 2, which is when it had a whole lot of guest actresses eligible, and then none of them got in. I don't think that'll be the case here, but we have so many different This Is Us actors on the ballot, and even though voters could check every single one of them off because they aren't restricted, I don't see all of them getting in. Asante Black is someone we should definitely look out for. He was nominated for When They See Us last year, which was a pretty surprising nomination. I don't know if he has the role in this show to really warrant a nomination, but I wouldn't be surprised to see voters check him off. And Michael Angarano was obviously nominated last year. I would even say he almost deserved to win last year, but I'm not sure. I don't think he had that much to do this year compared to the 3rd season. But you know what? Neither did Ron Cephas Jones. He just pops up every now and then, but he just seems to be a perennial nominee for this show at this point. But maybe at one point he just gets dropped. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen either. So in other words, this race is all over the place.
Yeah, I think there are actually 4 more people that we still need to talk about.
Yes.
One is Dean Norris for Better Call Saul. I do not have him just because I feel like Better Call Saul has had these Breaking Bad people in before, be it Mark Margolis or Raymond Cruz for the 1st season. They did get Michael McKean in last year, but I feel like that was off of goodwill for so many seasons. As a series regular, I feel like Dean Norris might be kind of more of an afterthought at this point, and he was never even nominated for the original.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he was nominated at least once, I think I would probably give that more of a shot there, but who knows?
Yeah.
We also have Michael J. Fox for The Good Fight. He's reprising his role from The Good Wife. And for The Good Wife, he was never actually snubbed.
Yeah.
There was one year where he decided not to submit so that he could focus his efforts on the Michael J. Fox show. But every other year that he submitted for The Good Wife, he was actually nominated. And now he's finally on The Good Fight, which is yet to break through at the Emmys. Acting races.
Yeah, that's my problem with The Good Fight is every single year we're like, someone from this cast is going to get nominated, whether it's a guest actor that was nominated for The Good Wife or an Emmy favorite who that appears on the show, but then they never get that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, for me, Margot Martindale and Alan Alda not getting in sort of told me everything I needed to know about the support for the show within the TV Academy. I just feel like it's every year it's the same thing, and at this point I have no confidence in the Good Fight actors, even though the show is amazing, the actors are amazing. I don't understand how they haven't been able to get nominations so far, especially since they loved The Good Wife, and they loved The Good Wife in these guest categories. Obviously, as you said, Michael J. Fox was never snubbed for his role on The Good Wife, but I also think The Good Fight has an issue, a visibility issue, because it is on CBS All Access. Which is why I don't think I would put anyone from that cast in, unfortunately.
Then I want to mention Cameron Britton. He is not being submitted by Netflix, but if he does end up on the ballot, I think he could actually win. I think we see that sometimes where people win for little cameos when people have been catching up on their prior seasons. Mm-hmm. So Netflix isn't submitting him because they're prioritizing people with meteor roles, which is respectable. And then the other show I want to mention is The Morning Show. Their chief contender in this category is Martin Short. And, The Morning Show, I feel like, could be like This Is Us season 1, where it's like, okay, Brian Tyree Henry, Dennis O'Hare, like, did they really do anything in the first season? No, but we like these people. We like the show. Sure, let's just nominate them all.
Yeah, and the role he has is very, very unsympathetic. he's playing kind of he's kind of playing a sex offender, and so that'll be an interesting thing if people see past just wanting to reward someone playing a character like that. But it's an interesting light to see Martin Short in. Very dramatic, very different. So.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop over to the drama guest actress race. In that race, just going off of The Morning Show, like I could see Mindy Kaling being nominated, even though hers is just kind of a series of fun little cameos.
That would be
none of us have her, but
yeah,
I could see it. Do you guys have any broad thoughts on the category?
I know Luca does.
Yeah. Well, we both. So Cicely Tyson is eligible once again for How to Get Away with Murder. She's been nominated 4 times for this role. She missed once in 2016, but she was also on the ballot for House of Cards that year. So it's possible that she just split her own vote. Except for that year, she's never not been nominated for this role. She was the heavy frontrunner to win in 2015. When How to Get Away with Murder was still this, hot new show, and it's the year Viola Davis managed to win for it, but she didn't win. She lost to Margot Martindale. Margot Martindale, who was just in a few minutes of her The Americans episode. So I have Cicely Tyson back in, and I have her in number 1 at the moment. I'm not going to lie, some of it is a bit of a hope diction, but I feel like she's 95. She's a living legend. She's one of the most respected actresses in the industry. Maybe all this collective goodwill finally translates into a win. If she does not win, if she gets nominated, she will become the most nominated actress in the guest actress category or drama guest actress category. And if she loses, if she doesn't win, she will become the biggest loser in this category, which is something I would really be disappointed to see. But she has a lot of competition. But I'll let Kevin talk first before I talk about the competition.
Well, yeah, I totally co-sign that. I do just worry that it'll just be another one of those situations where they nominate her again and there she is, but they don't feel the urgency to really give her one. I know she is a previous Emmy winner, and so it's not like a situation where she's never been acknowledged. But that was a long time ago. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I believe 26, 27 years ago. So,
yeah. And if there is a campaign behind her, if there is a narrative at all, I think that is something that these guest categories tend to reward as of late, is the idea of narratives. And I don't know if anyone else here really has anything like that. But then again, when you just look at the competition, it's like, I mean, Cherry Jones just won last year, who didn't really have like that much of a narrative for getting a win for The Handmaid's Tale. So, plus she has internal competition, perhaps, with Succession. I currently have her getting both nominations, which might be a mistake because that very, very, very rarely even happens. But okay, well, there you go.
At least.
So the issue is, that they both are shows that are probably going to be loved by Emmy voters. Obviously, they loved her role in The Handmaid's Tale. I assume, just based on her performance in Succession, that people are just going to love what she did there, because I certainly did. Just as a fan, I thought she was leagues better in Succession than she was in The Handmaid's Tale. So I don't know.
It's not saying much, because
I know.
Like, was she in like 45 seconds of this third season of The Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, she's in like one scene in a church with Elizabeth Moss's character. As a big fan of the show, I don't remember what she did, and I don't have her in for The Handmaid's Tale, even though she won last year, even though she was nominated the year before. I feel like they've nominated her for this role. They've rewarded her for this role. I don't see why they would check her off again. Her episode,
Marco Martindale.
You're right.
Years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
that's the thing.
Yeah, and speaking of The Handmaid's Tale, Alexis Bledel is the one who really worries me in regards to Cicely Tyson's winning chances. Alexis Bledel won for the first season in Guest Actress, and she was nominated for the second season in Supporting. And now, because she didn't appear in so many episodes, she's back in Guest. And boy, does she have a great storyline. She's heartbreaking again as her character Emily. My guess is she submits the fourth episode. And as I said, The Handmaid's Tale has never lost this category, and that worries me. It didn't even lose in 2018 when it had 3 actresses in contention. So even if Alexis Bledel is nominated alongside some of her co-stars, I could still see her winning. And some of her co-stars include Julie Dretson, who is absolutely incredible in the third season. I have her in at the moment. I wouldn't say she's in any way a safe bet, but she's also someone, she's been on so many shows, even in just little guest appearances. And she was in 6 episodes this season, so she barely managed eligibility in this category. But
it feels like she's in the whole thing. Like, it feels like she's in more than hand out.
Yes, because her material is also spread out. So even though she's only in 6 episodes, they aren't, like at the beginning or at the end. It's really spread out, and she has a big meaty role, and the conclusion to her arc is absolutely heartbreaking. So if voters watch the third season, I hope she gets in lieu of someone like Cherry Jones, who really only has the one episode or one scene even, but who knows? And one other person I'd like to mention is Clea Duvall for The Handmaid's Tale. She's also eligible. If they're voting for Alexis Bledel, then there's no reason why they wouldn't vote for her. She's in Alexis Bledel's storyline, and she's also been in a lot of shows lately, but maybe she's the one person that misses.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot going on in this category, so I feel like actually only Alexis Bledel is locked for a nomination.
Not even Cicely?
Not Cicely?
I mean, Cicely Tyson, I think, is getting in, but I mean, she's not in like a drama series nominee. She's missed before. Like, if they decide to nominate all these women from The Handmaid's Tale, and like a couple from Succession or This Is Us. Like, I don't know. It just feels all very uncertain. Like Clea Duvall, like you mentioned, like why wouldn't they check her off this year when she's been on the show for a few years and she's finally, with Alexis Bledel and getting that material, at least at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And then Cherry Jones is just so tricky because she's been in 3 episodes of The Handmaid's Tale at this point. And like it seemed like maybe the 3rd season would help her win the Emmy for the 2nd season, the way that we thought that Bradley Whitford's role did. Bradley Whitford is all over the season, whereas Cherry Jones is kind of just in that one scene. So it seems like they really love her and like checking her off for this role. So I've got her in for that role, and then I also have her in for Succession. And I also have Harriet Walter in for Succession now, which, again, goes at my inconsistencies with my Succession nomination predictions. But I feel like Harriet Walter actually has like a very memorable part in the season of Succession. And if we're all predicting Jeremy Strong, like I feel like one of his most memorable scenes is that scene where his mother just shuns him. And she is also helped by how she is in a couple other shows this year, how she's been in this last season of Killing Eve. So she'll be on the ballot for that. And then she's also on the ballot for Julian Fellowes' Belgravia, if anybody's watching that in the limited series category. Sometimes that doesn't really matter if you're in a whole bunch of shows at once. Sometimes it does. I feel like Succession is a show that might be watched this year. So that's why I brought her in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think she is one of those actresses who is just having this kind of a year. And it feels like it's finally like we're recognizing her talent. And sometimes that can result in a nomination. And I think obviously Succession is the best chance of that for her, because I assume she's in supporting for Killing Eve. So
yeah,
because she's in the whole season. Yeah.
And a few other people we have here is we have Felicia Rashad back in contention for This Is Us. She was the front runner last year for the show because we all sort of thought she was going to ride this overdue narrative to a win because she's never won an Emmy. She had a big episode in the 3rd season, and her season 4 episode wasn't as impactful, I would say, but maybe voters are just catching up. And even Cherry Jones last year said she couldn't believe that Felicia Rashad has not won an Emmy yet. So if more people are aware of that, maybe she just wins this year. It wouldn't surprise me at all. This Is Us is another show, again, that has so many actresses in contention. We have Pamela Adlon, who plays Sterling K. Brown's therapist on the show. Her role is very small, but I wouldn't be surprised if voters checked her off, because even though she's not in much of it, I still thought she gave a great performance. We have Jennifer Morrison, who is in quite a few episodes, actually. They sort of forget about her character in the second half of the season, but she's heavily featured in the first. She's another person. She's been working for a long time. She was on House. She was on many other shows. She was recently in Bombshell in a very brief scene. She is someone I could see getting her first nomination or big nomination in her career. But it worries me, again, that in the 2nd season, This Is Us had a lot of guest actresses on the ballot and just didn't manage to get any of them in, even though people like Elizabeth Perkins were on the ballot, who is ironically also on the ballot this year. So it's just a big mess, because it's very difficult to see which one of them is going to get nominated. And right now, I just feel confident in Felicia Rashad, and I think she might just be the only one from the show to get in.
But like even her, I feel like there's very little buzz around her performance compared to the other performances that we've been talking about in this category. Plus, This Is Us seems like it's kind of on the way out in that it was dropped by SAG this year. I've got her in largely because Cherry Jones talked about her last year after she won, but I don't know. If they didn't care then I'm not sure that they're going to care now.
Right.
She feels like very much on the bubble right now, but I do think even if she doesn't make it, that Pamela Adlon could very much take that place. I mean, this is kind of a dumb reason, but like she is at the very start of the ballot in guest actress AD, which sometimes can ironically help people. So, and Go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of which, you've got Laverne Cox coming back for Orange is the New Black. He has been nominated for 3 of the 6 seasons. Yeah, this is the final season. So
yeah, and
what do you have to
there's
say about her?
she barely even has anything to do. She's in one episode for like 5 minutes, maybe, just kind of checking in with Sophia in one of the last episodes. But she is another classic example of someone who you look on a ballot, and even if voters haven't seen the final season of Orange is the New Black, or they assume that it was over and that it wasn't even eligible, they just see, oh, Laverne Cox, Orange is the New Black. I liked her. We've liked her. So, yeah, I'm sure she was great. Which she is. She always is. But is another example of her being very recognizable in a specific role compared to others here.
Right. And
I would also just,
go ahead.
I was just going to highlight another contender. I don't know if you had more to say about Cox.
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, Jane Lapotaire from The Crown is certainly someone who has a very good shot. Prince Philip's mother, someone who is just a classic example of one of these veterans who can land a nomination here that had a very good episode. So,
Yes. And what she's helped by the fact, I mean, as of now, that Netflix is only pushing her in this category. They did not submit anyone else, even though they had a few actresses they could submit. And I feel like it could be she could be in the same situation like Matthew Good was in the second season, where if Netflix really, really pushes her, that she could get in. I think she needs that push because she is a veteran, but I'm not sure she's all that well known, especially in the United States. She is absolutely incredible on The Crown. So if it's on performance, we should say The Crown is definitely, I'm assuming we all agree, one of the top 3 for best drama series. It just won SAG Ensemble, so we know it has support from actors. So realistically, she should be able to get into this category. But as I said, I think Netflix does really need to push her in the way that they pushed Matthew Good and had him appear at obviously, we don't have FYC events this year like we usually would, but they had him appear at very many in 2018. And if I see the same sort of push for Jane Lapotaire, then I might put her in.
Yeah, I think people just don't know who she is. That's what I'm gauging. And I think that people are just taking her performance for granted.
Yes. And she's also in the middle, not that the ballot placement always matters, but she's in the middle of the ballot. So of course, some voters might know her, might go there, but sometimes being in the middle of the ballot can disadvantage you. But that's not something I'll hold against her. And well, we do have, a few other people we should probably just mention, even though they probably don't have that much of a chance. For instance, Juliana Margulies was on Billions this year. We know Juliana Margulies is an Emmy favorite, but Billions has never really broken into anything at the Emmys. I think it had its best shot in its first season, and it really wasn't able to get anything. So she could just be a wild card. And someone else for This Is Us we should mention is Marsha Stephanie Blake. Like her co-star Asante Black, she was nominated last year for When They See Us. She's on the ballot twice. She's also on the ballot for How to Get Away with Murder. Sometimes being on the ballot twice can help you. Sometimes it can disadvantage you because either you stick out or voters don't know which performance to check off. And speaking of How to Get Away with Murder, I should probably mention who I have in 6th. And that is Famke Janssen. Not someone I actually think has a realistic shot of getting in, but someone I am willing to put in at the moment since we are still in June. She's someone who's been on the show since the second season. She's been playing a character that is so important to the story. She's in 5 minutes of this season, but her 5 minutes are the reason why the series finale ended up working. If anyone else is trying to put down the predictions, probably don't include her. But that's someone. It's more of a Hope Diction at this point, and How to Get Away with Murder got 3 nominations last year, so why not?
Well, it's good we heard your rationale before the end of the video.